All right. Day 2 from Syndicate Crown is wrapped up. It's so dark over
Because I'm a dark person.
there. My mic.
I'm emo. I'm emo.
And we ton of action to get to in terms of what happened here at Syndicate Crown today.
Mhm.
I thought we might start over in Africa.
Okay, let me pull it up.
I
Let me.
got it.
You got it. You're gonna
I
take
got it.
control. Okay.
I'll let you get set up because you're late getting here. I just had
Okay.
something queued up in case you
Okay.
didn't make
Just in
it.
case. No faith. No
But
faith.
team competition in Africa is done. And these are the results there. Basically, it was 2 teams and everybody else. And literally, there was nobody who beat either of these teams on any workout. They were first and second, respectively, on every workout, as you can see. And in case you don't know who these teams are, the team that ends up making it, I believe their teammates are Baran Smith, Henry Mering, Lani Venter, and Janine Eslin or Peniel. She may have 2 last names. And then the other team was Damian Burns, Jaco Brits, Mariska Smith, and Santa Mostert. I actually know more of the athletes on the second team than the first team. And I think those are the teams that are competing there. It's been difficult to get some stuff from that region, but it was obviously a great battle. I haven't got a chance to watch any of it there. But it's at least fun to have a good competition for the one spot that they have on the team side. And so hopefully everything will go smoothly in the process of getting a team over from Africa to represent. But looks like it was a pretty fun race between those 2 teams, and that's the first group of people from the final week that'll be making their way to the games. Are you ready to go, Patrick?
Yeah. Keep on going.
Okay, I was just gonna stay in Africa.
Yeah. Don't stay there.
So we're gonna flip over to the individual side of things, where yesterday
Mhm.
Callum Diebel had the lead after the first event. You see him down here in 8th place now. He really bombed this workout, taking 21st place, which I didn't expect him to have a workout this bad the whole weekend, and he rallies with a 2nd place finish. So you wonder if that's just a I don't know if it's a double under skill thing. I mean, Callum Diebel is a young guy. We don't know too much about him in terms of competition, but pretty surprising finish there for me. And in the meantime, some of the guys that we expected to be competitive, Ruan Poitget here, 4th, 1st, 4th, and he's opened up a little bit of a lead. And Keelan Henry, he ends up struggling on the legless rope climb workout, which was, I would say, a relative struggle, 12th place after going 2nd and 3rd. Maybe a little bit more expected and along the lines of some of the things that we've seen from athletes with a similar build who got off to a really good start and then started to have their first kind of issue, if you will, in that workout. But for Callum Diebel, I would say that this is not great. That 21st in a region like this where you only get one spot, that's going to be difficult to rebound from, especially when you have 2 established athletes up there like Poitgetter and Keelan Henry. And Josh Kernot, who I don't really know, he was not on my radar at all for this. Showing up pretty strong so far. He's one of the
Top
surprises
10s.
here.
Mhm.
Yeah, 375 and certainly surprising. So let's see if he can keep it going. But Poitgetter was the guy that I had thought coming into the weekend after watching 2 weeks had the best chance, and he's in the top spot after 2 days of competition down there. Women's side is fairly similar to after day 1 in terms of the 1 and 2. Gilmarie is holding down that spot. She has 2 event wins and a 6th. The one event she didn't win, Gemma Rader won. She was the athlete that I had. These are the 2 athletes that I was kind of pinpointing as being the most likely to go. She's so 2nd, 1st, amazing, and then she takes a little bit of a hit with the 10th. It's good enough to hold on to the 2nd spot, but Christina Livatatakis made the move today after having her bad finish yesterday. 2nd and 3rd today. Obviously, Tanya Boof and Sue Ellen Bester are not too far behind her in terms of points, but I think that the game spot's going to come from one of these 3 women.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it yesterday that Christina, her best events are ahead of her, and she's already shown that third, and I think tomorrow, especially the snatch, she'll really end the final event. She'll come on really strong, and it's going to be a race. But it's Gamari's shown me a lot. She really has. I mean, just winning that event 3, that's a tough workout, and for her to kind of take that one, so.
So that's kind of the landscape there. And on the Africa side, I was actually talking to one of the event directors in Africa today, and excuse me. And hoping to get one of them to be able to come on and give us some insight about the Africa region. It's not the easiest time zone to line up with over there, but hopeful that we'll be able to have one of them on at some point next week, and maybe get a little bit more insight into what actually happened there in competition and where the general state of competition is at in Africa. I haven't actually checked this yet to see if the games site is updated. It is. Okay, so we'll just flip over to South America.
Oh, okay. All right. You're going to actually use their thing. So cool.
Oh, you have one. Oh, yeah, the game site's at least updated for the teams here.
Okay.
So they, similarly to Africa, the East, that team competition has wrapped up, and there was really no movement here. The top two teams were the top two teams. I think that actually coming into the weekend, they were the two teams I had seated at the top. I had the team that's in second from Argentina as the team to beat. That team is Piero Gorachon, Santi Comba, Mel Rodriguez or Molina Rodriguez, and Maria Camila Quintero is a new member of their team this year, which is an upgrade. She's very good, and she could be top 10. Both of the girls could be top 10 in the individual field in any given season down there. And but the Vitoria Centro Movimiento team, Filaman Souza, Bernardo Torcato, Claudia Amaral, and Natalia Mencari, I think those are the four, at least that's what we had from quarterfinals, are the ones who end up taking the top spot. There was a little bit of a change in terms of 3 and 4 with the Q21 team overtaking the Templo SA team, who is by 2 points, who was in that kind of battle for those top two spots yesterday. But basically, as the competition wore on, those top two teams were just too good and too consistent. And while the teams in 3rd and 4th had a 16th and 12th place finish respectively at some point during the weekend, nothing worse than 5th from that Mayhem Unity team, and nothing worse than 3rd from the Vitoria CrossFit team at the top. So pretty kind of runaway for the top two teams there. And as always, with these smaller regions, the big question is going to be how good can they do at the games? And we're going to talk about the teams here in North America East as well. But historically, it's been, few and far between where those teams are able to push for a top 10 or sometimes even a top 20. But these two teams had a really good weekend. They have some competitive times here. And that Mayhem Unity team is comprised of some quite good individual athletes. So we'll see, but congratulations to the 3 teams from Africa and South America that have qualified for the games today.
Congrats.
Didn't know if you had anything to add there. Not much to say. I mean, it's obviously well done. That's what they're competing for.
This is something to talk about. Our boy Sergio, he did kind of predict this.
Well, he was really high on 2 guys that we see on this list here. They're in 6th and 8th. Some younger guys, Enrique Morera and João Pedro Barcelos. I had asked him about some of these other guys here. I asked him about Benjamin Gutierrez and Bruno Marins as maybe having a chance. I don't think he gave them as good of a chance as some of those other younger guys. But Bruno Marins through three workouts holding the top spot. And I would say this is surprising to me, especially because before I looked at the leaderboard, I had saw a post on Instagram of Callian Souza taking his 2nd event win down there. And so I was assuming that he was kind of running away with this. But he took 16th on workout number 2. And, similarly to Diebel, it took from Africa, like that's a pretty poor finish compared to the other 2. But in this case, for me, this was actually quite surprising. There's nothing in this workout, given what I know about Callian, that I would have expected him to have this big of a struggle with. So I'm actually thinking I might go back and watch that to see what held him up, because it's a big question mark to me about what happened there for him.
Yeah, because that should be a workout that he does fairly. I mean, I'm not surprised he won event 3. Obviously, he's really good at rope climbs. Yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer there. But he barely won that over Bruno, so that's kind of, I don't know, only 4 seconds better than Bruno. But you brought it up yesterday, Guy. Having that, he managed event 1, finished with the 6th. And now he's got 2nd and 3rd, and then he's got probably his best events coming tomorrow.
I think it's possible he sweeps the day tomorrow.
Yeah, he might do it. He might do a Tia. So
well, I don't know if anyone's going to do a Tia, but I think those workouts are really good for him. In general, he's he's very fit, obviously, and the shorter time domain workouts are usually better for him. The fact that he's gone second, third, and sixth on the 3 longer workouts, each workout gets progressively shorter in terms of time cap and expected time of finish. We know the snatch is going to be fun to watch. I think the rowing handstand is going to be a good workout for him, and I think the final is going to be really good. So there's good guys, and Kayike Sereni is certainly going to be coming. I think he'll give him a run on that last event because he's probably going to have to try to get back into it. He's right now, the 3 guys will go. He's 27 points out at the moment from Souza. And Souza Mayeros are accomplished and very good. So Bruno Marins is in an amazing spot here. I'm actually going to see if we can get Sergio back on after the competition as well to give us a more, real feel of what it was like down there. But if you're Bruno Marins, I think you got to be feeling pretty good here and excited for the last day.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll be interested to see a little bit more from Benjamin Gutierrez. You look at that flag. I mean, we're used to seeing Brazilian flags up there. Can you look down and see where Augustin's at?
Yeah, Agustin Riquelme, I mean, he's bounced back a little bit from that 35th yesterday. I tried to find out what was going on over there.
Yeah.
6th place on the second event. I would have expected a good workout here. Probably even better than this if I had the pick prior to the event. And 16th on the legless box jumps bike workout, which, this workout, as much as they talk about it's just gas pedal and its capacity and whatever, I mean, this has very clearly now been this workout number 3, a workout where the shorter athletes in the field basically have no chance. I mean, you're talking about the guy who won South America. You're talking about, guys who are winning multiple events in semifinals in Uldis Upimnex, Colton Mertens. You're talking about Austin Hatfield, who looked amazing through 2 workouts. And it's just across the board, the best guys that are 5'6", 5'7", 5'8" around the world cannot put up a good score in this workout.
Yeah, it's almost like a reality check. It's like they get hit there, and then they're going to be hit a couple of other times going the final day. But all right, let's switch over to the women's. Unless is there anyone else?
No, I think that's pretty good. Women's side, I think a little different than the men's, where order was restored today after the first workout. Victoria Campos, who we kind of projected to be, a nose ahead of the field here, is back on the top spot, and the 3 of the other 4 women that I had projected to the top 5 are now in spots 2, 3, 4, and Amanda Fusuma rebounds from a 27th yesterday with a 1st and a 7th to catapult her back into the 7th place with still, I would say, a fighting chance for a podium spot, which is what's going to be needed. Julia Cato, really good so far, all top 10s. Andrea Pinheiro, great on the legless rope climb workout with the bike there as expected, and Emily Andrade improving every event. I think that this battle for the 2 and 3 spot is going to tighten up. I still think that 2 of those 4 names that I said will be the ones to take it, but we talked with Sergio about the fact that there's not a ton of challengers necessarily from countries outside of Brazil. You see that of the top 11, there's 9 Brazilian flags, and they just continue down. I mean, of the top 17, there's 14 Brazilian flags. But these 2 women from Argentina, Barbara Caravello and Lucia Veretti, who's a younger athlete, are hanging tough here and in the mix. So maybe they'll stay tough tomorrow and try to fight, but pretty strong and talented women ahead of them that they'll have to go through if they want to get to the games.
Yeah, and yesterday's winner, albeit after one event, Laura Gonzalez Marin from Peak 360. Obviously a couple of the people from Peak 360, they're asking me, how she's doing and stuff like that because they're so busy. There's interest here in the East on what she's doing there, and she took a little bit of stumble, finished 25th on event 2, and then 15th in event 3. So down to 12th, and then another person I was looking forward to seeing perform was Luisa Marquez, 28th, bounced back, started off the 26th, had a 6th today, but then was captain in event 3 and finished 3rd. So, and she's in 16th. So it kind of wraps up like the main contenders there. And
okay, I'll remove this for myself and let you take over.
I'm driving. All right, let's start with the women. We'll end with the team since that was who we crowned. So let's start with the women since they went first, ladies first. Oh, actually, the men went first. So, but we'll stick with the women regardless. All right.
Appreciate you, Sandy.
Oh, Sandy, thank you so much. Appreciate
$10. Very kind.
Very kind. Um, yeah. So no big surprise. Tia with the sweep, and it was
I thought we were
pretty.
going to start with the teams.
No, we're gonna end with teams.
Oh, we'll end with teams. Okay, okay.
Yeah, we're
Sorry.
gonna end with teams. We're gonna end with teams. We're gonna give teams the bulk of the love today. Um,
Okay.
Tia, you know, another sweep of events today. Pretty handedly. Uh, Here, let me go to event
I saw
2.
there's one word that came to mind for Tia-Clair Toomey for me today, and it was relentless. These weren't just
Yeah.
wins. These were she established herself as the leader in the top heat from the first round and never relinquished a spot to anyone on either workout. And I just
Hmm.
saw on every side of her, whether it was Brooke Wells, Danielle Brandon, Emma Lawson, Haley Adams, Paige Semenza, Amanda Barnhart, whoever was in that heat, Lydia Fish, who had an amazing day. They were
Hmm.
hanging, and then they weren't. And the times might show
Yeah.
some relatively close finishes. Lexi Neely, who was closest to her in this workout, was 2 heats earlier. Annika Greer was 3 heats earlier than that. Alexis Raptis was a heat before her. Erica Fola was the only person in that heat besides her who actually finished in the top 5 on this. And again, it's a bummer that there's not full coverage of the early heats today. But they just all kind of, from the jump, they were behind, and there was nothing that they could do.
Yeah, like we talked about earlier preview, like Paige Zemenza gave her a run right at the beginning. Some of these Erica Folo came on pretty strong, and we'll talk about event 3 where it's kind of like I liken it to if you know anything about UFC, when they do like sparring partners, when they do like practices, they'll have like 4 or 5 other fighters there in different skills. So they'll have one fighter there and one that's training, and they'll throw different, they'll just throw different athletes at them, to test them. And it seems like that's what Tia was a champion, and they just kept on. She was taking on old comers as they came. It didn't matter which round, and she would relinquish and dominate them. And like crush. I hate to use the word crush their will, but it seemed like that. It ended up, especially in event 3, it was ended up being a race for second. People were louder for that race for second than Tia got for cheers for finishing first. But that's just how it is. So, but like I said,
I think this is Jason Isaacs, by the way, great
mhm,
comments the past couple of days.
yeah,
Tia's incredible, but her presence make the women field too predictable. Men's is way more interesting because so many guys can win. We've seen this in the sport over time, right? That when Rich Froning was there, he seemed inevitable. When Matt Fraser was there, he seemed inevitable. And since Tia's won in 2017, since that first win, she has felt that way, and she has been that way. There was
mhm,
one regional 2017, she took second place. Other than that, that's the last time she lost any competition anywhere in person. Every single semifinal since then, every sanctional she ever attended, every CrossFit game she's been at, and there's no other word for it. I saw this comment here. Tia is definitely ready to battle Laura for the title. I think it's the other way around.
mhm.
Ah, okay. Rogue, right. She did lose to Laura at Rogue. Thank you, Sarah, for correcting me on that.
Yeah,
5 months
Sarah with the
postpartum.
smackdown. Yeah, way to get him, Sarah.
Um, does Tia have the Tiger Woods effect on the field? Yes, I think.
Ooh,
I mean,
ooh.
it's going into the final event today, the final heat of the final event. I looked to someone next to us in the media pit and I said, "Who you got, Tia or any of the other 9 women in this heat?" And they were like, "I mean, how could I pick anyone else?" And
Mhm.
it's kind of, and I was talking with Tyler Watkins of Heat One app today. I said, "Did you consider at all putting a cap on the number of picks you could have for Tia?" And he said no, because they want to keep it open to the public or whatever. And he doesn't want it to be a limiter. He doesn't want people to not play because of something like that. I don't think that's the case. I think that it would be more fun to not. I mean, I'm not even trying to win the Heat One app this week because I just think it's boring to pick her for every event, quite frankly. And I mean, I had said last week, I heard that JR had said the same thing. She might win 5 of the 6 workouts, but it's fun for me with the picks that I'm putting up. I'm not putting Tia on every workout. I'm trying to identify athletes who are lower down the leaderboard that may have their best event or may have a competitive score from an early heat, or even amongst the best women might have a chance to beat her on something. So, yeah, Tia, Has a Tiger Woods effect? Yeah. I mean, it's and even as good as Laura's been the last year, even as good as Emma Lawson has been in the last 2 years, um, I just don't see it. I just, since she told me she was coming back and that she was never going to be happy watching someone take her title when she wasn't there, I've kind of had no doubt that if she could, that she would. And what we've seen through 3 events is, you know, it's on par with what we know Tia to be.
Let's move on to event 3, since we haven't really talked about them. But event 3, again, Tia, she had a little bit. Her and Emma Lawson through I think it was like the first 3 or 4 rounds. They're kind of going back and forth, and then Haley kind of like passed up Emma, kind of gave her, Tia maybe a run for like a round, but ultimately it was Tia just kind of just going away with it the last 2 rounds, 3 rounds. But then Haley, again, we talked about that race. Haley her and Emma kind of were racing there for second. It was pretty cool. It got really loud in there. Obviously, Haley has a really big backing here, and obviously her story, everyone's been following it. I mean, she's a very lovable person. She got a lot of love, and she got a lot of. She's feeling it, and I think she felt very happy. I hadn't seen her smile like that since I think that smile was bigger than the first event smile.
Well, and the best thing about her competing is every time she crosses the finish line so far, she smiled.
Mm-hmm.
She's
Yeah.
taken 2 seconds and a 35th, and she smiled crossing the line all 3 times.
Yep.
And when you listen to the things that she said in the, when she started to be in a more public presence and speak a little bit this past month or so about being happy competing, when once you get deep into these workouts, like it's hard to regulate emotion. Just like genuine emotion comes out. If you get frustrated, people will see it. If you get angry, people will see it. If you're defeated by the workout or the competitors, it's hard to hide that. If you're happy, if you're enjoying it, if you're proud of yourself, that shows too. And that's what I've seen from Haley. And it's been refreshing to see after this event in particular. It wasn't just a smile. She looked up at the audience and a wave of emotion came over. She almost cried. She started tearing up, like tears came to her eyes involuntarily. And she kind of reeled it back in. I don't think she wanted to break down and cry there on the floor. And in addition to that, after leaving the floor, she did an interview with Bella. She did an interview with Lauren Cleo. She did an interview with you. She did an interview with CrossFit. And then she went and talked to her coaches, Haley and Josh and Tasia were all back there. And she like, some of the athletes were leaving there and they're like, I'm going to cool down, which is totally fine for them to do. But in addition to having these great performances, she's behaving in a way that is, the actions support the words for Haley Adams. And I actually spoke to her mom today. The last time I talked to her mom was before the award ceremony in 2019 when she won Rookie of the Year. So it's cool to run into her again. But I don't, if you're watching this and you love CrossFit and you don't feel happy for what Haley Adams is doing and seeing her back out there, I'm not sure what to tell you.
You maybe pick up Spartan Racing or something like that. I don't know. No offense. But I will say the interview, of all the interviews she did, like I felt bad because I was being nice. Obviously, Bella gets first crack at her, and then I knew Lauren was getting her, and I'm always going to defer to Lauren because I respect Lauren, and but I knew I was going to ask her different questions than everyone else, and I did. And you guys will see that interview up here. And when she came to me, she was like, "Pat," and kind of like smiled at me. I'm like, "Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you all the questions everyone else asks." So it's a really cool, fun interview. And she even said, "She's like, those are the best questions I've had since I've been here," because she was just smiling and having a good time. And that's what we try to do at B.Friendly. Is like, yeah, we'll ask the analysis questions, what you want to hear, but we also want to show a side of them that you probably normally don't see. And because we see the side that we know, that we're fortunate to know as people in the space that travel and get to see a lot of these athletes with their guard down, and we want we want to help out with that. But yeah, it was great. I'm hoping after event 6 that we do see Haley cry and break down. I think it'll probably be very similar to what Brooke experienced on that same competition floor 2 years ago, coming back from injury. But
Couple things I like this freeze frame that we have right here.
Mhm.
Couple things that I really like when I look at this, the trajectory of Jordan Sheffs and the trajectory of Elizabeth Wishart in terms of the 3 workouts so far.
Yeah.
Both are like, they're fringe games athletes. Elizabeth is coming off an 8th place at Wadapalooza. We caught up with her today, and Jordan is the one rookie that I picked in the field to have the best chance to make it. And she got off to a really slow start with a 21 and a 19th. She backs it up with a 5th out of the heat number 2 today in the rope climb event. Both of them are now up there 15, 16, right there with Annika, who's in 14th, and they're moving in the right direction. They're taking momentum into the final day. We know that you're at 15th, 16th, 14th, whatever, going into the final day, that's more than enough to be in a contending position with half the points remaining. So I thought that for some of the lesser known athletes in the field coming out of earlier heats, that was a really positive trend. And I would keep my eye on them tomorrow to start the day. They'll be in heat 3, obviously.
Yeah. And I think instead of just going over event 3, I think we just need to go over the overall leaderboard and then talk about it collectively, because like you said, there were so many great competitions throughout, races and battles throughout. But here's what the overall leaderboard: Tia, 300 points. Emma Lawson moves up in the second pretty comfortably, like a third, a seventh, and a third. And we thought this. We said this from day one. It's going to be Tia, Emma, and everybody else. But Alexis Raptis, competing, basically her competing against Fee in the heat before, but Alexis was just dominating, just flat out dominating. To get a 5th and 4th overall out of those heats just shows you the level of fitness. I mean, we weren't sure about Alexis. I mean, she had some medical issues earlier in the season that stopped her from competing at events that she normally would want to do. We saw her at the reps ahead, and then we've seen her in the other stages. But in live, she looks great. I mean, it's probably the best shape I've seen her in. Be quite frank. And she handled those workouts today just like a pro. And it shows that she can compete while she's ahead. I think that was kind of the question of the game. She had that leader jersey, and how can she compete when there's a target on her back? Well, she had a target on her back in that heat, in heat 3, from all the competitors, and she was able to, fight her way into the final heat.
There was one male and one female athlete today that did this out of heat number 3 after having not a bad performance yesterday, but I actually happened to run into her dad today, and we talked to him a little bit. And she just was struggling yesterday prior to the event. She couldn't get into like kind of a good headspace, physical space, and so I think that the feeling was that 11th was. It's not like a huge detriment, but it wasn't what she came there to do. She didn't plan on finishing outside the top 10 in that first workout. She did not plan on being in heat number 3 today, and she was angry. And it's, she's such a nice person. It's like difficult to imagine her angry, but if you watch the way she competed, she did to that heat what Hia did to the top heat. Is from the start of each workout, she made her presence known. She set a pace, and she said, if you want it, then you have to keep up with me, because I don't want to be here tomorrow.
Yeah,
I have no intentions of being in this heat. I never had any intentions of this being in this heat, and she's good enough that pretty much any competition, well, every competition she goes to, the final heat is where she wants to be, and if she's not there, she's not going to be happy about it. It is hard to set top 5 times out of those heats, and to do it on back-to-back workouts was great. We've been talking about how critical this day of competition is in terms of a kind of a benchmark for your game's potential. I do think that this week we're going to see that trend broken. I think there's someone who had a outside the top 20 finish today that will make the CrossFit Games, whether it's Austin Hatfield or Haley Adams. Those are probably the 2 biggest candidates to break that streak. But in the case of Alexis Raptis, we had thought that podium finish here was within the realm of possibility. It would most likely come down to her and Danielle Brandon for that last spot. But right now, Paige Semenza, I haven't seen many people talk about her or to her up to this point, which is kind of indicative of her entire career. But she has shown extreme poise, composure, and fitness through the first 3 tests.
And not only that, but it looks like she's almost taking chances. Like I said, she came out a little bit hot, but she was able to kind of settle into something. She in both workouts, I think she made almost like an effort to kind of like, okay, I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, I might be in lane 9, but you know what? I want people to realize I'm here, and people were taking notice. Now she would fall off a little bit, but not enough to the point where it was dangerous. Like her fitness took over. But yeah, a ninth, a sixth, an eighth. I mean, those are like Chris Ibarra, like numbers right there.
Exactly right. Great comparison from last week, and then we see Erica Folo there. Obviously incredible performance this morning in event 2. I was very curious for the reasons we've already talked about to see what happened in event 3, and I think that a 19th place finish there is an excellent finish for her on that workout.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she just managed it. It was one of those things, like when she did event 2. It's weird because like event 2 is one that she was. I think just all the workouts, she's just kind of like nervous about or scared or whatever. But when she's out on the floor, she's just doing
Maybe
her
just
job.
uncertain because she hasn't
Uncertain.
really done this against a field like that. You go out there and you look to your right and you're like, oh, that person's been to the game 8 times. That one's been there 6 times. That one's been there 4 times. That one's been there 5 times.
Actually, I don't think that's it. I think it's more about just the competition itself, not the athletes. I don't think she's bothered by that at all. I think it's more about
just being on this stage.
I think
she's been on this stage.
Yeah, I think it's more personal about her, about letting other people, letting herself down and letting down the people that believe in her. I think it's more that than is the other athletes. I think that's what it's. And we definitely need to talk to her about that at some point. Obviously, she's been on with us. We've had conversations with her. I've had many conversations with her, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. I don't want to predict anything, but I mean, the workouts tomorrow, how she does, but she's going to be in a fight again. I mean, you look at all the, I mean, we go down to the 11th spot. I mean, it's 24 points.
Yeah, and the caliber of athlete here is incredible. So Sarah's saying there's a couple athletes that they haven't shown too much on the stream. It is tough. I mean, it's tough to cover every story. That's why we do these. We're trying to give you guys some insight. Yeah. So this is great to know, actually. In terms of Danielle Brandon, obviously she's sitting up there in 4th. She's had super consistent finishes. She hasn't hit a home run yet. I think that's going to be tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow, of course.
And she'll be in one of the podium spots after that workout. But and I think that she can do just really well in general tomorrow. But she's just looked kind of steady. She made a little push to try to stay with the top women in event number 3 today. And after the 3 rounds, she faded back. And by the top women, I mean Tia, Haley, and Emma. And it ended up costing her a little bit. I think that if she had paced that a little bit better in the first 3 rounds, she might have been able to finish maybe 5th or 6th. You see Semenza got her by about 3 seconds. And there was some times from some earlier heats that crept in there as well. But overall, she's just she hasn't done anything to grab the attention of the broadcast yet, and she hasn't done anything negatively to grab their attention either. And at the semifinal stage in particular, those are the athletes that will kind of get lost in the shuffle. So she's most likely just going to be locked into a game spot from beginning to end, have at least one stellar performance tomorrow that you guys will see and that you get to hear from her about. Maybe 2. And other than that, she's just going to be going back to the games where she's going to be trying to fight for a podium spot. I think that I saw a comment earlier that last podium spot is really up for grabs on the women's side. And certainly Danielle is an athlete who could believe that she could get that. I was happiest today to see her squatting because of the last 2 years and how difficult that's been. Most people have only really got to see that in 1 or 2 instances. But to talk to her and know that how big of a fight she's made to get herself back to a position where she can do that regularly and competitively, I thought that the 8th place finish on the workout with 50 front squats at a moderately heavy weight was the best thing I've seen from Danielle so far.
Yeah, and 7 is an athlete that we're impressed from day one, but I don't know. This is a kind of a disappointing trend here. 4th, 11th, 16th. I mean, I don't know how the first workout's going to go for her tomorrow. I mean, I can't really recall her being really good at handstand. I think she's a decent rower. It's Caroline Stanley. And then I think she'll be maybe mid-pack, middle maybe in the snatch, but I could be wrong. But yeah, she's kind of trending the wrong way, but of course she does it with a smile. I mean, this is the most animated I've seen her, and she looks like she's having fun out there. So hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, she's moving in the wrong direction in terms of finishes by event, but when she crossed the finish line in event 3, I just happened to be in front of her lane, and she was really happy. And I think that it's this, kind of a mindset that you have to have as an athlete is, did I execute the plan? Okay, good. I'm happy with that. Now, okay, where does that leave me? Let me go evaluate what that means with half the competition remaining. This is another great comment from Jason Isaacs. I'm really impressed with Brooke this week in event 3 was always going to be damage control, but is still being a qualified position with her best events left is great. Yeah, she looked obviously great yesterday on the run. She looked really good actually on the toes to bar front squat workout. We mentioned that 3 of the top 5 times came out of prior heats. That means that she finished third amongst the women in the final heat on that workout. And she looked great on the toes to bar, composed and relaxed on the double unders, executed front squats very, very well. Again, I know that there wasn't, it sounds like there wasn't a lot shown of her there, but that was the workout to me that kind of made me feel like, okay. And I saw some comment here as well about maybe she can't have a podium contention anymore. We'll see, but at least that was the workout where I was kind of, becoming a believer again that Brooke Wells might be back in that top 10 conversation. And there's a lot of room for maneuvering within the top 10 on the women's field.
Yeah. I mean, while we're on Brooke, we might as well talk about her. And then we'll jump back up and talk about Lydia Fish. But Brooke, well, obviously is damage control. You forget, like we don't forget. I mean, obviously we know 2 years ago on that same competition floor, she almost lost her games trip because her and someone else we'll talk about later on in 12th. They struggled on that legless rope climb event, and she like 26 is good for her, but what it's done, it's taken her out of that first heat tomorrow. So I really wanted to see her go against DB. And I really think Brooke Wells had an outside chance of maybe winning that event, because I think Brooke, when she's obviously, before DB came around, she was the best handstand walk athlete out there. I mean, her and Katrin probably were pretty even, but Brooke is so good on the rower. And I think that tomorrow's workout, especially being in that last heat, she probably had a chance of winning that event. She still might be able to pull it off, because obviously the athletes in that heat, that third heat, are really good, and she's going to be middle lane. But I foresee, I don't see anything worse than a 5th place finish in that opening event, which will probably put her back into the top 10 for the snatch, and then hopefully, and then and throughout the rest of the competition.
Yeah. And, she may have the same mentality that Alexis had today, is I'm not happy about dropping to this heat, and just, it's only by 1 spot. It's only by 6 points, but there's you heard the athletes talk about it coming out of quarterfinals. I don't want to be in the first heat out of 2 on day 1, or the third heat, second heat out of 4, or whatever. And she might have that mentality, and we may see a Raptis-like performance tomorrow. But if she does do well enough on the first event, they'll reseed after the handstand walking, and then she should be in the final heat for the last 2 events. So that positioning and maneuvering around the like you mentioned, from Folo down to, I mean, even I would say Annika in 14th, tied on points with Lexi Neely there. That's 40 points. Like, a lot can shift there in one workout, as we know and as we've seen. And for all of 8 of those women, or whatever it is, I think it is 8. They want to be in the top half of that group, not the bottom half going into the last 2 events. Because at that point in the weekend, I think that it's advantageous to be in the last heat.
Yeah. Yeah. You got, it, because you're going to go it's kind of like the flow of traffic. You're going to level up to your competition on that. And it might mean seconds. You're going faster by a couple seconds in that last heat than you would be in the previous heat. So let's jump back up. Fish. Wow. I mean, this is someone you've seen her in competition live at Crucible. In traditional scoring, she probably would have won that event. The AP score for that. She's unassuming. She really is not, and I don't mean that. That's not an insult. If you saw her, she looks like she's not very muscular. But she's just really quiet. I mean, I think she opens up to us a little bit because we've gotten to know her. But I'm just really impressed by her demeanor. And I mean, Brian, you can talk about it. You've had a couple more conversations with her than I.
Yeah, I think identifying that word, demeanor, the way she carries herself, we've talked about it with other athletes before. The way she comes out onto the floor, the way that she competes, even small things, she was, I think, a little bit unsure about what was going on with her judge during some of those box overs during that workout. She didn't let it phase her. She just continued with the workout. She's trying to figure it out on the go. And then when I talked to her after the fact, I was like, another top 10 finish. And she's like, wow, okay. Like, so, and she's hanging tough there. These types of performances where, now we really have to take notice. And in the case of athletes like this, we understand we're at the halftime, of the competition, and that there's no guarantees. But we knew that from 2022 to 2023, she had made some clear improvements between all the competing she's done in the last year. She's given us more and more reason to kind of have some belief in her future potential. I didn't really expect her to be in the top 10 after 2 days against this field, but now that she is there, I'm really excited to see if she can stay. And so, yeah, talking to her has been great. Watching her compete has been exciting. And, it's kind of like every workout is she going to fall off? Is she going to hang tough? But she's beating people in that final heat on both events today, which has got to feel good.
Yeah. And I think for her and Fee, who we've talked to, and there's a couple other athletes here, event 4 tomorrow is key for them. They need to have a good finish and stay in that top 10, because I don't foresee them having a top half finish, maybe, or at least top 15 finish in event 5. I just don't see that. So they need to they need to open up tomorrow with a strong, and I don't know how Lydia is on her hands. I'd imagine that she's a decent rower, just like anybody else. But her and Fee, they really got to show up for that first event tomorrow morning to stay in that heat, because that event 5 is looming, and that's something where some of these athletes in the bottom that are not even in contention are going to put some distance, some space in between them and take away points.
Good observation here from Jason again. We mentioned how just across the board, every semifinal, the smaller men are having a difficult time in that workout, whereas the smaller women, it's not necessarily the same story. That's because this workout is very different for them. The only time you're going to see a male fail a legless rope climb is when you see what happened with Jason Hopper, where he just went for it, trying to go for the win, and came up an inch short, I think. I'm not even sure. On the women's side, you see women that they're walking back between the transitions, not because they're tired, because they're just giving themselves that extra second or 2 or 3. They'll take an extra breath or 2. They'll actually stop and chalk their hands instead of chalking them up while running, because the risk of missing the legless rope climb is much more real for the women than the men. And obviously there's certain women that's not the case for. But Lydia was really comfortable on the rope. Every one of her climbs looked the same. Almost all of the women here do this technique where they get to a certain point and then they use the full momentum of their body to reach for the beam, because the tape, there's the beam, and then there's the buckle, and then there's thick tape, and then there's a small piece of tape, and it's at least a foot from the beam down to where their hands can be on that rope, and maybe even a little further than that. And so all of them are basically doing that big body swing for the last. But Lydia was very consistent on a rope climb. She didn't really have that hesitancy, and it definitely did pay off for her as a relatively smaller athlete, still having a good performance.
Yeah. Fee was right there with Alexis. Again, Alexis was fighting in that third heat. I think it was great for Fee to have Alexis in that heat, obviously, because I think that helped her, kind of gave her maybe someone to pace off of. Otherwise, we find her in the top 10, the 13th, the 10th, and 11th. So she'll be out there tomorrow. Haley Adams.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
We can talk about Haley.
Yeah. So Haley, we kind of alluded to before, a second, a 35th, and a second. Puts her in 10th. I think she's going to do well tomorrow, first workout. I mean, I wouldn't imagine her, again, having a top 5, maybe even a second place. So, I mean, but then, we saw, heavy squatting, what it did to her. Now you got heavy squat snatches coming in event 5. So we possibly could see something maybe similar to that, maybe a 30 or worse finish.
Yeah, it's hard to say. That'll be an interesting one. It's I think that the weights are manageable for her on
Mhm.
that workout. I don't think it'll be as bad as a front squat workout in terms of overall
Yeah.
placing, but I do think that we're gonna see really good in the morning, her worst event of the day in the middle, and then a good performance. Probably not as good as the morning in the final. So she's probably gonna have that similar kind of pyramid, inverted pyramid or valley leaderboard performance tomorrow. But because of the way that they're doing the seeding, should be in the final heat throughout. And I think being in that final heat on the last event is critical for her.
Yeah, it's very for
I just wanted to take a second to look at Lexi Neely here.
Mhm.
Lexi, for as good as she's become at only 21 years old, has gotten very little attention. I think I'm going to try to talk to her tomorrow a little bit. But she was at Wadapalooza. She had 11th place finish there. She's actually, I was doing some research for this and I thought this was kind of funny. She's been 17th at the semifinals the last 3 years. Obviously, they're
Hmm.
not all exactly the same format. So the
No.
17th last year is quite a bit better than the previous two 17 place finishes when there were only 30 athletes and they took 120 total women to that stage of the season. But in the quarterfinals, she went from 100 3 years ago to 22nd last year to 12th this year. So everything about the way that she's trending off season, quarterfinals, semifinals is positive, and sure, so is her performance this weekend, where she's moving in up the leaderboard as the weekend goes along. Obviously, that second place finish is tremendous. Given the caliber of the athletes all around her, she's going to need and probably another really strong finish like that. I don't know if that which workout that has the most likelihood to be tomorrow, but I have kind of this like sneaky suspicion that she might surprise some people on the snatch. So one of the least well-known athletes that's in the hunt right now,
Mhm.
and she's super young, but I think this is an athlete who you will get to know over the next couple of years. She's on the shorter side. She's kind of, but she is kind of sneaky, powerful. Some good gymnastic skills. So we'll see how well she's able to hang tomorrow on those three tests, but I'm not surprised to see her in the mix given everything that I know about her from the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, and she has a lot of competition experience. You mentioned Wadapalooza as a teen athlete. She does a lot of the regional competition, so she's been in this position. Maybe maybe not with the caliber of athletes here, but she's well versed. I don't think the pressure's ever going to get to her. I think it's just a matter of just performing the best of her ability and kind of like shutting out that noise. Um, obviously Brooke in 11th. Just kind of a mix up there. We kind of really on her. She's in that lot right now. I think it's going to be another case where it's probably going to come down to the final event for her, depending on how she manages the snatch. I mean, we know that she's strong enough to do the snatches. She shouldn't have too big of an issue, but we just don't know because we've seen athletes who've missed a couple at the lighter weight and it's gotten in their head, especially because there's a high volume and that fatigue starts to set in as you get into the heavier weights. Um, Shelby Neal, we can't talk about her enough, especially when it comes to this that venue, because famously she basically lost her games invite 2 years ago because she couldn't complete legless rope climbs, and then she spent a whole year just practicing legless rope climbs, and now you're seeing that. I mean, it helped her get to the games last year, and here you are, she finishes 12th in the event. Kind of like exercising those demons from 2 years ago. So
Well,
great
and
on
actually,
her.
you can see it here. There was a really tight group of women on this workout. She takes 12th. Right below her on the leaderboard is Lexi Neely in 14th, and we don't see it on this screen. But another woman 13th, where there's in between that 1.5 second margin. Those points we've been talking about it. Those points right there
Mhm.
are critical when you're probably going to be in one of the last couple spots in or the last couple spots out. But especially for her to earn points by small margins on a workout that has a density of that movement in it has got to be a good feeling for her. And we talk about momentum, we talk about confidence going into a last day. I think coming off that performance is a really good mental place for Shelby to be.
Yeah, I agree.
I
A lot
do
of
want to
people.
just I,
Oh,
I
go
want to
ahead.
just I was just because I just saw this. We've been talking a lot about the women who are going to smash event number 4. Do
Mhm.
not count out Chloe Galvin David on that workout.
No.
I think that she will have a top 3 finish on event number 4 tomorrow morning. I told you guys before this competition started that she could be a person to ruin some people's days. And I think that tomorrow, I mean, she's been really middle of the pack, 19, 18, 18. She's 19th overall. I think we're going to see a little more from her tomorrow. And it's going to start with I'm throwing it out there. A top 3 finish on event number 4.
Well, early your picks for tomorrow. Okay, cool. I like that. I ran into her as we're leaving the venue. She actually coaches one of the teams. I forgot which one of the Canadian teams, but she's the Pro 1 team. She is like coaching them. So she stuck around and she was there, and we ran to her and her parents. So great person, by the way. I absolutely adore her. Annika. All right. I interviewed her before that the run, the day before during check-in, and she was really confident about her running getting better. Unfortunately, she did not get to show that because she suffered basically a cramp where she has difficulty breathing. And I don't know if you saw that, but you could see that she was wearing some Airosty tape on her ribs, and that's where she was grabbing that area as soon as the run was done, and it really was affecting her. But she comes back, and well, it's Annika in true Annika fashion, never making it easy on herself, but comes back a 4th and an 8th out of the first heat. It was to the point on the event 3, she was coming off the floor. Some of the girls or women with her were like, "Hey, can you just get out of our heat now?" And Annika's like, "I'm trying," because it's like it's another level. And but yeah, 34th is going to weigh on her, and I think she's going to do fine in the next 2 events. But the amount of points that she gave up from that event 1, it's going to come down to that last event, and she's never going to make it easy for her. So it's just something to look out for. Another storyline. I'm rooting for her because she's such a great person, a great human being. She has a great supporting system at the P360 and training think tank. But yeah, it's just crazy.
If you're thinking about the game's potential for tomorrow on the women's side, I still think that Amanda Barnhart has a chance down in 17th place. Obviously, a pair of 22nds don't bode very well tomorrow. She's going to need 3 top 10s at the very least tomorrow to get in, just with the caliber of women ahead of her. But if anyone outside of there made the jump all the way up, I'd be a little bit surprised. We talked to Chiara Napoli today.
Yeah.
Chiara Napoli and her coach as well, Travis Mayer, by the way. I didn't know that. It's the first serious athlete, or maybe first athlete that he's really started to coach. So be on the lookout for a little bit of an interview with them at some point. Either, I don't know if we'll put it on Instagram or it'll be in the vlog that we put up next week. But it was fun talking to her. She used to be a softball pitcher at University of Virginia, which I thought that you would love, Patrick. If you didn't already know that, you usually have all the details on that.
I wonder how old is she? 25. Oh, she probably. Well, I don't know. She might have played against Caroline Stanley. We'll have to ask her because Stanley played in that as well. Who knows? They might have played against each other at some point.
She graduated with a degree in marketing. She has a full-time job in that field, and she's still pursuing a competitive CrossFit career. So these women down here, just inside the top 20, are all extremely good and competitive. You see a massive drop off after about 19 there, 20 points, and then another like 20-point drop down to 23. So maybe down to Chloe Govin David with a perfect weekend could be like the last type of a person who could potentially get into a game spot. But I think that it's unlikely anyone below Barnhart ends up making it to the games.
I do want to bring some special. We were able to talk to Reese Littlewood, 17, youngest, athlete in here. She just, I mean, I'm a fan. She just when we talked to her, it was right after, I think it was right after the 39th, right? When we talked to her after that run, or was it that this morning?
No, I talked to her this morning. I was
this morning.
So impressed with her poise and articulation in front of a camera. A lot of people freeze up when you put a camera in their face. And now you're talking about a 17-year-old. She spoke very well, clearly, confidently, and informatively. It was pretty cool. So I don't know, very impressive on and off the competition floor for Reese Littlewood.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of recognize that. I mean, she came in 25th on that, but she came across that finish line. She was celebrating like she'd won the heat, and then she came back in event 3 and finished, I think, second, right behind Annika. Kind of snuck in there between Ashley Wozni and someone else, and she was celebrating. And she kind of reminds me of Alexis Raptis. I think that's where her potential's at. I think that's where I'm kind of seeing like some similarities between those two. And I just want to kind of just give her someone to look out for if you're watching some of the early, or if you want to pick someone else. But she's someone to keep an eye on. Obviously, her season's going to continue on with with that Pit Fitness. But yeah, I just want to recognize her. And then what a tough day for Pre. Just she just unfortunately, I think just her overheating. I believe it was heat exhaustion or overheating on day one. We knew that event two was going to be her strongest, but I was actually impressed by her double unders. She seemed like she kind of kept them together. But yeah, but
Just happy that she's all right after the way she looked yesterday more than anything.
Yeah, 100%. And then you kind of go on, and then it's just kind of tough seeing Caroline Spencer's name down there at the bottom. This is a two-time games athlete, and it's just like, it just shows you again, these women are getting better, and some of these younger women are just coming up. And nothing against Caroline Spencer. I don't think she's any less fit. I think everyone's just getting fitter, so and more talented and more skilled. So.
Actually, I spoke with Ben Smith today about that exact thing. So maybe that'll come out at some point as well. But he echoed the same sentiments.
All right. So there are some comments regarding no reps and stuff like that. I think we'll get to that here in a second at some point. But Roman, I mean, is there a more popular person in the male field right now?
In terms of the reaction from the crowd, the two loudest cheers are for Roman Krennikov and Taylor Self.
Yep. And Roman's having fun out there. And, typically Roman historically, he's not like a semifinal regional type athlete. I mean, this dates back to when he competed in Asia, the Asia semifinals. He didn't win those.
Well, he did win the Europe one in 2018.
Yeah, true. But he looks great, and I've been impressed, especially that last workout. And he's just been a fan favorite across the board.
Well, as long as we're talking about him, let's just start with what you said is absolutely true. He looks amazing. He looks composed. He looks competitive. He looks like he's enjoying it. He looks like he's aware of what's going on. Everything that you would want to see from a top-level athlete, from a championship caliber athlete, from a semifinal winner or a games contender or a fittest man on earth. Like, he's embodied that three workouts. These are, these comments of all these people over here about, Dallin with the no rep, Vellner making a comment, Roman jumping off the box and them showing that and whatever. They talk about Dallin getting a no rep in the earlier round. Like, it's a valid conversation, but to me, it's detracting from the overall thing that we're watching this weekend. So I'm just gonna address this now, and then we're going to move on and talk about the performances of the athletes. In that particular workout, Dallin Pepper went out aggressively. I loved the strategy from him, actually. He was excited for that workout. He thought he could actually, I think, challenge James Sprague's time. I think the floor layout made that kind of impossible for anyone to do. But he got a couple no reps, back-to-back no reps in, I think, round number 6. The first one was pretty obvious to me that his hand was on the box before his feet were on the ground. It was a good call. He was just getting a little bit ahead of himself in terms of moving the box. The second one, I have no idea why he got a no rep for it, but he did, and he continued on, and this allowed Roman to close the gap with him, and also Jason Hopper to close the gap. I don't know what was shown on the broadcast, but Hopper and Adler were not like necessarily out of the race, and then Hopper smashed those last 10 calories. Like, he just decided, I'm going to go for the win. He came off the bike before anyone. He went up the rope. He swiped for the top. He hit something. He definitely hit something. The judge was still back by the bike. I don't know if he had a great view of it or not. I want to watch that back and see if I don't know if there's anything that I'll be able to see or not. Maybe one of you guys can tell me. But that was like the risk did not pay off for Hopper. He came back down. He looked winded, but he looked around. He saw what was going on. I was really commended him for jumping up there and doing another rope climb pretty quickly. And I thought that was the fact that he could recover from that and do it again was an additional testament to the work that he and JR have been doing on the upper body pulling. And so he fades out of that the win for the heat competition. Obviously, then there's Dallin and Roman going for it. That did allow Jeff to pass him. Jeff's performance on that workout was commendable and in its own regard, because a bike workout is traditionally not a strength of his. JR said he didn't touch what he was supposed to, which means that there's a there's that buckle I was talking about. So if you
Yep.
hit that, you don't get it. If you don't get the top, again, I'm not sure the judge is in the right position to make the call. It sounds like JR says the judge made the right call, so great. Anyway, then we have Dallin and Roman going rep for rep here, and basically the last heat of the men's competition in every event it's so loud, it's so energetic, it's the environment is electric, and this is the most difficult moment to be a judge, because you got to call a really kind of a weird standard where the athletes are racing, where you're forced to jump down. The timing of what you're technically supposed to do is that both feet come off the box in your lane, and then you go to the finish line. All of them, they don't have to actually finish on the other side of the box. You could run past it so that you finish on the side towards the finish line, which I think in the last round is a better decision to mitigate what I'm about to talk about. Because if you
Mhm.
do that, then you're going to stay in your lane for sure. You're not going to want to put your hand on the box as you run past it. You still could have the temptation to jump down off the box. Actually, even for athletes of my level in the open, when I got to the final burpee box jump overs in that wall ball burpee box jump over workout, I started doing box jump overs the way that I would do them when I'm going fast, which is jump over, get on the ground, jump over, get on the ground. And I got no reps for them, rightfully so. But if you're just looking at it on paper, Roman obviously should have got called back for a no rep on that. Dallin technically should have got called back for a no rep on his last rep, and Saxon Panchik technically should have got called back for a no rep on his last rep because his hand was on the box before his feet were on the ground, running towards the finish line the same way that Dallin got penalized the rep before, and none of those no reps were called. In the big picture, I don't think it's going to change anything in terms of those athletes making it to the games or not. But we've seen other athletes in previous weeks that got held to a high standard, and there's placements and shifted based on that. And the judges were willing to make those calls in those instances. And today they either weren't willing to, weren't focused enough, were caught up in the moment or something like that. But those are things that are being looked at by the judging team. These judges here, by the way, it's an incredibly experienced group of judges, as we said yesterday, and they want to know when they get it wrong. And
Yeah,
yeah,
we had conversations with some of those. I mean, they have judges on the side judging the judges, making sure that they're making a call. And kind of like we talked about last week, there is a talented head lead judges out there trying to correct them. I mean, when you watch those, it's almost getting, as a photographer, it's getting ridiculous because when you're watching, especially the winners, you'll have two judges, the judge for that lane, and then two head judges over there watching to make sure that you do it correctly. And then every cameraman for CrossFit and the venue. But
now
yeah,
there's a couple other things here. First of all, yes, Renata, 100%. The moment was electric regardless, and the athletes are putting on a show, which should definitely be celebrated. HRCBD, tough calls to make in real time, for sure. But that's this sport. And look, in other sports, we have seen terrible calls at big moments, specifically in the NFL. There's been, massive games, Super Bowl caliber games, playoff games where the refs are making these calls and basically ruin the game. And it happens. But that's also the time when, sorry, this sport has gotten to the point where a second matters, a pound matters, a no rep call matters. And potentially at the games, we're going to see, as the comments were mentioning earlier about how Tia's running away with everything, the men's field is getting as tight as any field, men or women, has ever been in the history of this sport.
yeah.
We have the honor of watching 5+ of the top 10 in the world here this weekend alone. You throw in the top couple guys from Europe, the top 5 from last week in the West Coast, the top 3 guys that came out of Oceania, maybe Guimaeros puts a top 10 bid back in this year. And you're just talking about, 15 to 20 guys at the CrossFit Games where these things will matter a lot for money, for placements, for sponsorship bonuses that they could potentially have. That's why the judges are trying to be as good as they want, but Lee Pinkham, the pro officials get paid a lot of money to make those big calls. No judge that you see on the floor here is getting paid to be on the floor making
I
those
think he
calls.
meant in general, like in pro sports. That's why they can do that.
Right?
Ours aren't. They're volunteers.
Correct. And this is, something I don't think that will last forever. I think that if this sport continues to exist and to thrive, they will have to have, and we see movements in the judging perspective or in the judging realm of this sport where it's trending in the right direction with the creation of something like the AFJ, with the checks and balances system, with people who are usually in the past couple of years being team leads that are now out there in lane 5, 3, 2, 1 making these calls, and that they're learning from each other and they're holding each other accountable and they're trying to get better. And the last hurdle is are the CrossFit Games, where the pressure is the highest, the penalty for getting something right or wrong is the most costly. Are they actually buying into this system of trying to get the judges that are most likely to make the best calls in the biggest moments on the floor when it matters the most? That was a lot about
All
that,
right.
but I know it was a
Got
hot topic today. So let's move on to some of the other
Right.
athletes.
Okay. We talked about Saxon. I think Saxon. This is a Saxon that had kind of like ruled North America for a couple of years there now. I love seeing him out there. It gives us another person to kind of root for, and he looks great out there. And I think he's going to have some good events tomorrow. I think he's going to do really good in the snatch ladder. I think he's going to do really good in event 6, event 4. I think nothing shows me that he won't have a top 10 finish in that, but he's got some competition and Down and Jason breathing down his neck. But it should be interesting. It should be fun. But it's fun seeing Saxon out there healthy and back to the Saxon that we're used to seeing.
Well, the top 5 guys on this list right now have put a 21-point gap between themselves and the rest of the field from 5th to 6th, and those are the top 5 guys that we thought coming into the weekend. We maybe had some different opinions about who might win, who might podium, but based on their pedigree at this stage of the season and overall as an athlete over the last year or two, this makes sense that these 5 guys would be at the top. The biggest question mark of them was probably Saxon because of what happened last year, but that was just he just got hit an injury. He had a training. He had to get injured in training. He couldn't compete at the semifinal level. He rededicated himself to doing this again. He's realigned with Facundo, and he's right back to where he left off, the year prior. So no real surprises here in the top 5. I don't think any of these guys are going to have any issue with any of the workouts tomorrow. I think that likely those will stay the top 5 guys. But after that, from Corn YA down to I don't even know where at this point, this is going to be as crazy today as it was tomorrow as it was today, or even maybe more so, because we're still strolling down here and we see guys like Alex Vigneault in 17th place,
Maybe
Spencer Pantic
19th.
in 19th place. I would say that's
Yeah.
probably the line
Yeah.
where
Well,
Spencer
300
and
points.
above are still
Yeah.
in the mix.
Yeah. So you're talking, what's that, 19? And we're, yeah, that's what, 6 spots for roughly 14 people.
Which is that's what we expected. And when you look at this list, you can make a case for every one of these guys, given what we know about them, given what we know about the workouts tomorrow. And what is it going to come down? This is why that conversation that we had earlier is so relevant, because on the athlete side, it's going to come down to execution. And you think about small details. Today, for example, not that it's going to matter for her, but Danielle Brandon did an extra box jump in round number 2. Her judge had said she was done. She just jumped on the box anyway. She kind of laughed it off. She came back off the box. Then she moved it forward. It cost her 3 seconds. Who knows if those 3 seconds make a difference? We saw Tudor Magda last week, an event that he should be amazing at. He kicks up too fast in the first round. He gets called for a hand outside the line. He moves back. He has to redo it. That cost him 6 points. He ends up missing the game by 3. We've seen the margins with the Ulda Supernexes. We've seen the margins with Colton Mertens. We've seen the margins with the Luka Vuniaks. We've seen the margins across the board at these semifinals. It's so tight. And now you have 14 just savage athletes that all are in the mix tomorrow. And more than half of them will not go to the CrossFit Games.
Yeah. It's,
So let's talk about a couple of them. Here's a great guy.
Let's talk about Samuel. We talked about him, at our event 2 recap, but then he comes back and finishes 5th, and in his heat, it was pretty much, it was a no-brainer. came across. He looked like that Samuel we saw in 2021, at park, and that's a dangerous
I caught
person
up
to
with him
have.
after the yeah, I mean, I caught up with him after the, second workout today, but even on the floor, he was yelling, "Get me out of this
Mhm.
heat. Get me in that
Yeah.
final heat." Like,
Yep.
that's where he wants to be. That's where he wants to be at the games. Um, yeah, he was the Alexis Raptis of the men's field today.
Mhm.
Dominated those 2 workouts, looked extremely good doing it, put up competitive times that held up against that final heat, which we know the caliber of it, and puts himself right back in the mix. I think we projected him to be 6 through 9 come the end of the weekend. He's back in that conversation right now, and he's right there alongside a couple other guys that we thought would be
Mhm.
in that mix. One who's a veteran of many, many years in Travis Mayer, and one who is yet to make the CrossFit Games, and that Jason Isaacs is nervous about in
Yeah.
Austin Hatfield.
It's someone that some of our contemporaries have, they thought that he's a top 5 athlete. I think right now he might be things are kind of trending the wrong way for him. I mean, yeah, the first and the 23rd. Some people might say, "Oh, that's just one workout," but I don't know. I mean, history's not really on his side when you look at the semifinals and athletes like him. You had him, I believe, 8th, and he's at 7th right now. So
8th or
ooh,
9th maybe, but
yeah.
yeah, and I mean, look, that comment that Jason made, I heard that comment from at least a half a dozen people today. Ooh, this looks really similar to Colton Merton's first 3
Mhm.
workouts. Well, let's see how he does on the next 3 workouts because, Austin Hatfield has specific characteristics that are extremely indicative of highly successful athletes in this sport. He does have a 300-pound snatch. He has a 400-pound clean. Clearly, he's a
Mhm.
good runner. Um, but the capacity on the machines tomorrow is going to be tested in 2 events. And even if he has a Colton-like performance on the snatch, which, by the way, this field of snatching athletes is just as good as the West Coast. So to do that, he's going to need to have something phenomenal, which Colton obviously did, and maybe Austin can do it too. I think he can have a good workout on the snatch. The other 2 workouts, Colton did not do well enough on, and Austin will not be able to afford having 2 bad workouts tomorrow. So if he doesn't come out of the gates with a good performance on the row and handstand walk, he must have a good final and do as expected on the snatch. And and we're just going to have to see how that first one goes. There are a lot of guys in this field that I think can beat him on the row handstand walk. Now, maybe he'll surprise me. Maybe some of them won't be as good as I thought so. But when you look at the 10 guys that are behind him, I think 8 of those guys at least can beat him on that workout.
Travis Mayer, the veteran of the group.
Yeah. Yeah, I said I talked to Ben Smith today. I talked to Travis Mayer today. It's just fun talking to those guys. There's people that have been around this sport for a long time. There's very few people that have been competing at this high of a level for a long time. Um, and those 2, have obviously Travis doesn't go back to 2009 like Ben Smith, but he's been around for a long period, 2013, and he's seen it all. So he feels great. He feels competitive. He feels excited. He loves being out on the competition floor. I think if you're a guy who's outside of a qualifying spot right now and you're looking to get into one, I'm not picking Travis as the guy that I'm trying to take his spot. Like I think that Hatfield, Calderon, Christophe Boulanger are much more vulnerable in those positions than Travis Mayer. I don't see anything tomorrow that's going to be a hindrance for him. The lunges with the dumbbells, I think I would consider to be a strength. The rowing is a strength. The handstand walk is not an issue. Snatching, he also boasts a 300-pound snatch in his history. He said he's happy he doesn't have to do a 300-pound snatch tomorrow. But certainly very capable in that lift. So I feel of the guys that are in this 14-person group that we're talking about, he's the one I'm most confident in making it to the games.
I would echo those sentiments as well.
Who's winning the event for tomorrow? On the women's side, if I had to pick, I would go with Danielle. Tia, I don't. I mean, why not? But Haley Adams and Chloe Gavin. On the men's side, that is a tough pick. I think
Mhm.
I think I might have Dallin in the Heat 1 after that. I think Dallin has a chance to have top 3 finishes on all 3 workouts tomorrow. I don't have a good recollection of how fast Roman or Jason are on their hands when there's nothing else in the way, because it hasn't come up that often in the last couple of years without some kind of interference, whether it's a ramp or a pirouette or a handstand push-up. But similarly to we saw today, if the machine weighs heavy, those three guys are going to be tough to beat. If there is a freak handstand walker in this field, I don't know who it is.
For some
You're
reason,
still muted.
Jake Berman. Yeah, for some reason. Can you hear me now?
I don't know. Yeah.
I think for some reason Jake Berman's name kind of sticks out to me in the handstand walk for some reason. I don't know.
Maybe for handstand walk, but I don't know if he can hang on the rower with those guys. I mean, those guys are going to be pulling 135 across the board, I think.
Sure.
And in the case of those three particularly, they're going to be, if they pull a 140, they're almost they're coming off, they're feeling a hell of a lot better than the guys on the left and right of them. But there's some big boys here. I mean, in terms of rowing output, you have got Luke Parker, you got Alex Vigneault, you got Marquand Jones, Christophe Boulanger, Caron. Like Taylor Self, we saw can hold his own pretty well on the rower. He's really fast on his hands. I just think that this leaderboard is going to take another drastic shift in that workout. And if you're, a guy like Rosema or Hatfield, even Dre Strom, I'm curious to see how he does on this. Not that he's bad at those things. There's just a lot of big boys in this field, and the handstand walk is something that they should all have dialed in. So I think you're going to see people take a little bit of a risk, and I think it'll pay off for some and not for others. But I think if I had to pick someone, I'd go with Allen right now.
Yeah. I do like we're not talking about event 4, but just his position right now with the workouts we know coming up is Tyler Christopher. I think he's put himself in good position right now to maybe punch his tickets, his actual in-person CrossFit Games ticket as an individual. I like how the workouts stack up for him. He's going to do a good job on the snatch. I think everything's going to be manageable. So I don't know. I'm rooting for him. I know it's really close with all that group. I think out of all of them, I think he has probably the most consistency across the board for all of the guys that are going to be contending. I don't think he has something that's going to hold him back, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to almost everyone on this list here, and several of these guys have told me they feel the fittest they've ever been, and obviously there's some veterans amongst them here. Alexander Caron was one who said he feels amazing. Tyler obviously has looked great. Boulanger had the type of day that I expected today. I thought that front squat workout would be a challenge. I thought the legless rope climb would be. I thought he might even have a top 5, 7th. Obviously, is great against this field.
Mm-hmm.
I think tomorrow sets up really well for him. Same thing with Luke Parker. I think he's a dangerous name to be lurking outside the top 11 right now. It's just going to be tough. But what we've seen in terms of the trends is that the big boys do well on the last day in the semis, and there's a bunch of big boys that are outside the cut line right now that are coming, and there's some tough guys in those spots as well. Man.
Yeah, that's something we talked about, and we said we talked about on the show. Will Moret had a great first day, finishing 4th. And he looked good. I mean, he looked good. These workouts looked good for him. Had an issue. We saw it right after that. He finished, I think, dead last in his heat. He came off and then he sat down. I have some things of that, pictures of that. But he sat down in the hallway while you're giving an interview, and he mentioned something about his hip, and then he had to withdraw due to a hip injury. And what that does, it opens up one of those spots that I thought he was a shoo-in. Believe me, I thought he was top 11. I think you're kind of teetering.
I didn't pick him. Yeah, I didn't pick him, and I kind of I feel bad not picking him because of how good he's been in the past, how consistent he is, and how tough he is to beat. But obviously, I didn't think he would miss it due to an injury.
Yeah.
So you never like to see someone go out like that. I think he certainly made the best decision for his body, but it was tough to see him. I think he kind of knew that was the case.
Yeah.
And didn't take the floor for the next one. So we'll miss seeing Will Moret on Sunday here. He's obviously had some storied Sunday performances at the regional and semifinal stage. So just wish him the best with the recovery.
Yeah. Since I interviewed him, I haven't put it up yet. but he had a lot of family was in town. I guess his aunt, who's a big fan of his, is the first time she saw him compete in person. So it's just really bad, to kind of like know that and know those stories. And, it probably took a lot for him to withdraw. I mean, he's a former collegiate soccer player, played at, I believe, at Belmont, and how soccer players are. It's like, I can only imagine how type of soccer player he was. He's probably one of those tough forwards or something, or midfield that would never come out of the game. But yeah, it's tough. Anyone else on the men's side? I know you mentioned you talked to Ben Smith. Was there any other, I mean, we're seeing some other names like Jorge Fernandez there in 32nd. I mean,
You know
I
what?
guess
Jorge's had a lackluster performance so far, but he's had a very
his
positive
attitude.
mindset.
Yes.
And he posted something on Instagram tonight, and I was expecting to see it and say it was like some kind of a negative, an apology, something's bothering me. All it said was halftime adjustments incoming.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about this with Jack Farlow earlier today. Not everything's going to go your way in CrossFit. It never does. But he, I think, has realized this is tomorrow's an opportunity. Tomorrow's 3 more opportunities for me to go out there and test myself and see where I'm at. He's never really done this before. He's been in the team field. So he made it here. Now he has a chance. This is his litmus test. Yeah, he went to Dubai and competed, but it's very different. He knows he's going against some of the best guys in the world. So, okay, let's see the halftime adjustments. Let's see if he comes out and puts together a couple good performances. Obviously not making the games, but that doesn't mean that he can't have some positive performances tomorrow, and that he could potentially come away with some wins as to go along with some losses when he goes back to the drawing board and decides what's next for him.
Yeah. T-Bird, when you get to the men, any please tell me that Jack is sick or something. And before you reply, this is the cool thing about being at a live event, especially something like this where the athletes are so accessible. Lynn, T-Bird, I just saw Jack today and we talked for a bit. He looks great, but I'm heartbroken for him. I think Day Woman is going his way. I mean, as far as I know, he isn't sick. He's not hurt. It's just it might be fatigue or something. It's hard to tell. And I'm not going to speculate. Maybe that's something I'm not going to ask him this during the competition, especially maybe that's something we ask after the competition because, we know Jack, we're fans of Jack. We want him to think about the competition and, us asking these type of questions probably, it's not helping him out. So, yeah. That's all I got to say about that.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't have any insider info on that either. And I've basically been respecting the same thing that Patrick has with that regard. That's just, I mean, I know there's other people that would go in there and ask those things. I don't love doing that. But even on the workout that he did best on today with the legless rope climbs, he laid on the ground for an alarmingly long period of time after the workout. All of the other guys that had finished before him or around the same time as him in his heat were already up, drinking water, moving around, congratulating each other, and he was still down there on the ground. And I don't know if that's a physical, a mental, an emotional, or a combination of those things, but it made me ask similar questions. So it's certainly fair that you're asking that.
Yeah. Yeah, let's put a bow on this. I know we have things we want to do tonight. I think it's almost 9:00. I still haven't eaten. Chad's leaving me to go meet up. But he's been busting his ass, getting a bunch of edits done, and I'm sure you need to eat too, Brian. So let's hop on to the men's field. The team field. Unless you have one final thing you want to talk about regarding the individual field.
Nope, just that as good as this field is, I think that we've got the best day and the best division, save for the last of the semifinals this year. And tomorrow's men's field is going to be something you don't want to miss.
Yeah, especially, we walked up this morning of line just all the way stretched all the way out to like the parking lot or the parking garage of people trying to get in. And what an amazing crowd today. Yesterday we talked about how one side was packed. The other side was almost just as packed. So it was great. It was great. They're loud. I did an interview with Dave Castro today, and one of the topics we talked about was the crowd and semifinals, some of the other things we discussed. And now that I see it, I believe Jason asked the question. I wish I would have asked Dave the question about will there be cuts at the games, but All right.
He would have just given you a nice big grin
I
and
know.
said, "We'll see."
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
if I
Hey,
look, I did.
you got reposted by him. You, Bella, and Chad.
Uh, my guess, if I had to
Yeah.
guess, I would guess yes, but I have
Yes.
no
I
real
would.
reason for saying that.
Yeah, I would guess so. But all right, teams. All right. Start
I
off.
don't
Event
actually
four.
know. I don't actually know for
Oh,
sure if the attendance is better here or not. I just think that the venue. I know that the venue presents that the attendance is much better, and that's I would say that's a really positive thing. I think that the
mhm,
total number of people on site is probably pretty similar.
probably. Team. Uh, Peak 360 kind of, they stumbled in event four, but they weren't very happy about that, but they ended with an event five win. I actually talked to Henrik, who is the boyfriend of Matilda
Matilda.
Garner's Matilda. And I asked him, like, what time are you aiming for? He's like, what did Invictus have? I was like, I think around 240 something. He's like, yeah, we're trying to get less better than that. So they finished at 1032. Yeah, just an overall dominating performance. That event four. I think event four. I don't. I like to say just like the other teams, especially in Ocean State CrossFit. I think just they just went for it, and it showed. That event four was crazy,
Yeah,
absolutely crazy.
it really was, and I spoke about this in between 4 and 5 while you were doing some other stuff, is that we
Mhm,
were in the previous 2 weeks, we were used to seeing, kind of shuffling of the leaderboard, meaning that the top teams didn't have the best performance on event 5. Here, it
mhm,
happened on event 4, and then in event
mhm.
5, the top 3 teams were the top 3 finishers on that workout,
Yeah.
come the end of the day, so there's a little different pattern from the final day in other regions, but, uh, basically we had a little podium battle. I thought it was gonna be between Mayhem and Eighth Day, and it ends up being 11:24 who goes 5-3 today. They were absolutely stoked. I know you spent a long time talking to them. They were
Mhm.
dancing, they were smiling, they had a huge support crew here.
crowd crowd favorites, and I think it's that energy. You know, I know a few of those athletes on the team, and what I will say about 1124, probably the only. Well, I mean, I can't confirm this, but of all the teams that made it, it's top eight, right? Top eight teams. They're probably the only team where none of them have games experience. They're all going to be games rookies at any
Okay.
level. So something to know.
Eighth
Um,
Day comes in as, like, I think they were the third to last team to qualify here. We know that the leader of that team, Michael Pasta, not to quarterfinals. Very
mhm,
consistent performance across the board. Well earned fourth place there. Reignited, they end up kind of being the team that was just in the middle throughout, so they didn't have any super highs. They had no bad performances either. Safe, easy trip to the games. Ocean State did have a big high today in the first place, an event win, the only team besides Peak 360 to get a win. That was a huge plus for them to give them a
mhm.
little bit of a buffer that they needed going into the final because they didn't have a great final. But job done. They'll go to the games, and then basically this was you know kind of a tough final three to watch here. I mean, coming into this one or coming into the day, Levi Mayhem was in 10th. They had a great performance, second place that jumped up them into seventh. It bumped Somos down to 8 and TTT down to 9. If you didn't catch it on the broadcast, Training Think Tank appealed their own wrong score yesterday on the lifting event. Gabrielle Acker had been credited for 245 pounds, which is what it said on the placard. She actually only did 235 pounds. They wanted to make sure that that was actually indicative of what they did. Obviously, impeccable integrity on their part. And so I think they'd been in they had a better finish. I don't remember what it was. I think it was 10 pounds higher. They
They
were
would have
in
been
second.
second. They would have been
It's
second. Yeah.
cost them 6 points.
Mhm.
And
They get in
at
by
the
3 points.
at the final event, basically, I thought everyone thought that it was the winner between Somos and TTT that would go to the games.
Mhm.
TTT came out strong through the first 3 rounds. They were beating Somos. Somos passed them in the last round. They celebrated knowing they'd done enough. TTT came in, if you look at the times over there,
Mhm.
6 seconds behind them. And they looked completely defeated. Like, we just lost by one spot to this team. We did the right thing yesterday, and we're going to get penalized by missing out by one spot. But on the outside lane, Levi Mayhem really struggled on this one. They took 17th, didn't know at the time whether that was going to be enough or not. And we watched there on the finish line. There were the two lanes right next to each other as TTT was obviously given the pleasant surprise of making it despite all this adversity over the last 24 hours for them. And Levi Mayhem looked absolutely crushed, man. I talked to those guys today. Both of the men in that team are, I think they said they're firefighters, or at least in some kind of service role like that in their communities in Canada. Jason Houdet had taken the initiative to put this team together, to believing that they had what it takes to get to the games and to come up 3 points short. It was hard to watch.
Yeah, it really was. It's like I watched them during that announcement. They're just, yeah, it was tough to watch that. Usually there's kind of like a pretty decent point gap, but here it's just, again, we were talking about, it's like comes down to inches and pounds, inches and pounds.
That's what the margins are. I also wanted to just give credit to Milford. I mean, they did not have a great start to the day, but they fought back and had a great final performance. They ended up not being that far away from qualifying, but I thought they handled themselves really well on the competition floor. And overall, as deep as this team was, these all of these 10 teams certainly came into the weekend with a good chance to be here. I think I picked at least 6 of them that ended up making it to go to the games. Pro One was the last team that had a real chance today. That they were in the prior heat, so they didn't get to compete against those top 10 teams at all today. They still had decent finishes, but it wasn't enough in the end. So we get one Canadian team that's going to the games, some pretty experienced teams there. A really nice kind of story this weekend for 1124, and Peak 360 basically sending a message back across the bow to Invictus to say, we'll see you in Texas.
Yeah. I mean, again, Mayhem, we didn't really talk about much about Mayhem, but solid performance, fifth, second, fourth, second, nothing worse than a 5th place. It's Mayhem doing typical Mayhem stuff. I mean, looking solid across the board. They're definitely a team that can, they're definitely a top 10 team, possibly a top 5 team, in my opinion, at the games. But they might, things might change. I do want to bring a special attention. 8-day CrossFit. You mentioned them being one of the last teams in. Their theme was chasing ghosts. They fought their way through. There's an athlete on that team that I know well, Danielle Dunlap, who's been competing in CrossFit for a long time. She's been close to making it the games. In 2018, she was a member of the OC3 team, but right before the games, they made a switch and they brought another athlete in. So she never did at the games, technically. And that OC3 team finished 3rd. She had a child soon afterwards, came back in 2021 as an individual. She, finished 9th here at the MAC, back when it was in the basketball arena, made it last chance qualifier as an individual. Next year, 2021, she was on that SoFly team that made the games. I believe they finished 2nd or 3rd, I believe. Yep. And of course, one of their members, tested positive for a performance enhancing drug. So she's had a rough go at it, and she's been around, like I said, a veteran of the game, and she just keeps on fighting. And I think she's probably I really wanted to say I'm proud of her and proud of that team, and they're a really close-knit group, and she's kind of like the outsider. She travels all to train with this team, but good on her. Those are the type of stories I want people to recognize, like someone like her who's just a great person. She's an I believe married to a veteran, and has a child, and it's just cool to see, And then of course 11/24. I mean, you're going to enjoy watching these people, them at the game. They're young, they're charismatic, they love to have fun. It's just great, and we know a couple people on that team, and it's just really cool for them. So, but overall, Peak 360, they're taking a couple days off. I just talked to them. They're actually making a trip to Guatemala. The whole team is not for a vacation, but to do some seminars down there.
Yep, they were advertising that I think last week or 2, and clearly be enjoyable after the victory this weekend. So, yeah. Congratulations to the 8 teams that made it out of North America East, the 2 teams from South America, the 1 team from Europe. So the team field is rounded out, barring any drug issues, and it's a pretty good field. Most of the teams that we expected in all the regions got in. A couple surprises. And as far as the individuals go here in the East, it's going to be one hell of a day tomorrow. Men and women's field are both going to get extremely tight. It's going to be competitive. You're going to see highs and lows. And the final tickets to the games will be punched in the final 3 regions tomorrow. So hopefully you guys will be able to tune in for the broadcast. Otherwise, we'll try to do our best to keep you guys up to date. We'll come on Instagram Live a couple times, and then we'll go on Instagram at the end of the day. We won't do one of these tomorrow on YouTube because we're just going to go out with some people here and enjoy the last day of semifinals. But then we'll be back on YouTube throughout the week this week, bringing you a variety of different stuff.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone that came out. I mean, it was great to finally meet you, Lynn. It was, it was awesome. And then, I met Renata. A couple other people came up to me. Thank you, appreciate it. Those who were able to get their shirts and stuff like that, so cool. Renata, be careful on your 14-hour drive. Take rest, take many a rest, and you have plenty of podcasts to listen to catch up too. But yeah, we appreciate all the support. And just if you're in the area, come on out. Like I said, there's nothing. It's just a great environment. I'm really excited, and we have a lot of content that we're banking and we're going to put out in the next couple of days. Like I said, interview with Dave. Brian has a bunch of interviews. We have a vlog that Chad's working on where he kind of follows Brian around the whole day, just talking to athletes, talking to coaches, talking to just people in CrossFit that you normally don't get attention. And he's trying to bring attention to. So shout out to all of you guys. Brian, final word before I end this thing.
I don't know. I think we said it all.
Yeah. So thank you all for the support. We'll see you tomorrow. Be safe tonight. It's Saturday. I'm going to try to be safe. It's going to be an early morning, I believe. But I'm starving. Going to meet up with some amazing people that it's a reunion whenever we come to these events. So it's always good to get dinner with them. So Brian, you have a great dinner. Enjoy your evening. I'll see you in the morning. Everyone else, we'll see you tomorrow. And as always, be friendly, our friends.